It was supposed to be a quiet place to start fresh. That's what everyone said about the little neighborhood tucked behind the tall trees and quiet streets. When the new homeowner moved in, they hoped for peace, a normal routine, maybe even a few friendly faces. At first, that's exactly how it seemed. The days were calm, the evenings peaceful, and the air felt lighter than the stressful life left behind. But peace doesn't last long when someone believes they own the neighborhood. The trouble began slowly. So slowly that it didn't seem like trouble at all. It started with a note. A small folded piece of paper stuck neatly under the mailbox flag. Please repaint your mailbox to match community standards. No signature. No explanation. Just the kind of message that makes you wonder if you've already broken a rule you've never heard of. At first, it felt harmless. Annoying, maybe, but nothing serious. The new homeowner shrugged it off and went on with their day. Maybe the HOA was just strict. Maybe someone was trying to be helpful. But a week later, another note appeared. Your grass is 1 inch too long. Please mow immediately. This one felt different. It was written in the same sharp handwriting, the kind that looked angry even when the words themselves were simple. Again, no signature. Again, no conversation, no friendly welcome, not even a knock on the door. The homeowner asked a neighbor about the notes, and that's when the whispers began. You probably got one from her, who? The one who checks everyone's house? She's not officially in charge, but she acts like it. She's with the HOA, but she's more than that, you'll see. Nobody said her name. They didn't need to. A few days later, the homeowner learned exactly who they were dealing with, while dragging the trash bin to the curb. A woman with sharp eyes and a clipboard appeared as if she'd been waiting for the moment. She smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind that made your stomach tighten. I'm with the HOA, she said before the homeowner even opened their mouth. I handle compliance. I noticed your trash bin was placed forward too early. Please don't do that again. We have rules for a reason. She spoke like every sentence was a warning. The homeowner apologized, surprised but polite. They didn't want trouble. They didn't even know there were rules about trash times. She nodded stiffly, turned, and walked away without another word, clutching her clipboard like it was a weapon. That's when the first uneasy feeling settled in. Not fear. Not yet. Just a sense that something wasn't normal here. The more time passed, the more the notes appeared. Sometimes small things. Your curtain color isn't approved. Please align your recycling bin with your driveway edge. Your porch light is too bright. Other times, the notes carried an edge, like someone was getting impatient. Please take responsibility for your property. We won't tolerate neglect. This is your final notice. Final notice for what? There had never been a first one. The homeowner tried fixing the small issues. They changed the curtain color, repainted the mailbox, even bought a new porch light that was dimmer. But the notes didn't stop. If anything, they grew more frequent. One evening, while sweeping leaves off the driveway, the homeowner spotted that same woman walking down the sidewalk, scanning every yard like a hawk searching for prey. When she reached their driveway, she paused. Your driveway has too much debris, she said. You need to clean it more often. I'm literally cleaning it right now, the homeowner replied, holding the broom instead of acknowledging the obvious. She scribbled something on her clipboard. Just follow the guidelines, she said. Then she walked away. That night, a conversation with another neighbor opened the homeowner's eyes even more. So, she does this to everyone, the neighbor said quietly, glancing around like someone could be listening. Last year, she fined a family for having a garden gnome. A gnome, said it lowered property value. People try to ignore her, but she gets worse if you do. She's been pushing people out for years. The homeowner felt a chill crawl up their back. Why doesn't the HOA stop her? The neighbor gave a tired sigh. Because she is the HOA, at least the part that makes noise. Everyone else just lets her do what she wants because they're scared of her. And that's when something clicked. This wasn't about rules. It wasn't about community standards. It was about power and the strange joy she seemed to get from enforcing it. Things began to escalate in small, unsettling ways. A morning walk to the mailbox revealed her car idling at the corner, facing the homeowner's house. The engine off, the woman inside staring with unblinking focus, not taking notes, not checking anything. Just watching. Another day, the homeowner caught her standing near the backyard fence, pretending to look at a bush but angling her body to peek between the slats. When confronted, she lifted her chin and said, "I'm allowed to inspect property lines," and she left before any explanation could be demanded. The homeowner began documenting everything: photos of the notes, screenshots of timestamps, even a small folder on their phone labeled HOA issues just to keep track. They weren't planning on complaining, not yet. But something about her behavior didn't feel right, and it felt safer to keep records. Still, despite the growing tension, part of the homeowner hoped it would all settle down. Maybe she would get bored. Maybe she would find someone else to target. Maybe she would simply back off. But that's not how things worked with her. One morning, a homeowner stepped outside to find a bright orange violation notice taped to the front door. Not slipped under the mat, not placed in the mailbox, taped directly to the door, eye level. Impossible to miss. It listed several violations, most of which weren't real. Improper hedge height, unapproved decorative items, garage door not fully aligned. The homeowner stood there reading it, feeling a mix of disbelief and frustration. The garage door was aligned. The hedges hadn't changed since moving in. Decorative items? There weren't any this time. The homeowner marched to the HOA office, but when they explained everything, the board members barely listened. They exchanged awkward glances, shrugged, and said things like, "She's very dedicated, and she just wants to keep the neighborhood looking nice." It was clear they were afraid of her too. They dismissed the homeowner with empty smiles and no support. Walking home, the homeowner felt something shift inside, a small flicker of determination. If nobody would help, they would handle it on their own. They started installing cameras around the house, quiet ones that blended into corners and porch lights, not because they expected anything serious to happen, but because the woman's behavior was becoming harder to ignore, and soon it would get worse. For now, though, the homeowner tried to keep life normal. They worked, cleaned, walked around the neighborhood, waved at friendly neighbors, acted like things were fine. But underneath the daily routine, there was a growing sense of tension, a quiet, constant pressure, like the air just before a storm. No one knew it yet. But this wasn't just an overbearing HOA member or a nosy neighbor. This was the beginning of a long, exhausting battle, one that would push the homeowner to their limits. And the woman with the clipboard? She had only just begun. The strange feeling in the air didn't fade after the first round of warnings and notes. If anything, it grew heavier. The homeowner tried to believe things would settle down, that maybe the woman with the clipboard had made her point and would move on. But that hope didn't last long. Small things began to happen around the house. Not big dramatic events, just little things that made everyday life feel slightly off. A garden tool left out suddenly disappeared. A potted plant near the porch was knocked over one night, though there hadn't been any wind. A package went missing from the doorstep. At first, the homeowner thought it was coincidence or bad luck. But after the third missing package, it was hard not to wonder. One afternoon, while carrying groceries inside, the homeowner caught a glimpse of movement near the edge of the yard. Someone ducked behind a tree too quickly and too deliberately to be an accident. When the homeowner stepped toward the tree, the woman appeared from behind it, pretending to be inspecting a patch of grass along the sidewalk. "Property maintenance check," she said without looking up. The homeowner opened their mouth to ask what she was actually doing, but she walked off before they could get a word out. That was how things always went with her. Conversations weren't conversations, they were orders. And even when she wasn't speaking, she hovered, watched, waited, as if she had nothing better to do. The cameras the homeowner had installed brought some peace of mind. But even those didn't stop the feeling of being watched. Every time they left the house, whether to mow the lawn, take out the trash, or simply sit on the porch, the woman seemed to appear somewhere nearby. Sometimes she stood on the sidewalk pretending to adjust her clipboard. Other times, She walked slowly back and forth, glancing at the house out of the corner of her eye. Days passed like this, then weeks. The tension grew until it felt like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. One morning, the homeowner stepped outside to find a fresh violation notice taped to the mailbox, not placed neatly like before, but slapped on carelessly, corners sticking up as if it had been done in a rush. This one was different. Instead of listing specific issues, it read, "You continue to ignore the community guidelines. Immediate corrective action is required." This is not optional. There was no explanation of what corrective action meant. No details, no examples. Just a vague threat. This time, the homeowner didn't brush it off. They took photos, documented everything, and sent an email to the HOA asking for clarification. Hours passed with no reply. The next day, still nothing. But someone else responded. Late in the afternoon, the woman showed up at the door. She didn't knock. She didn't ring the bell. She just stood there, staring, waiting. When the homeowner finally opened the door a few inches, she leaned closer than necessary. "You're required to make changes," she said. "You should know what they are." "How would I know?" the homeowner asked calmly. "The notice didn't explain anything, and I emailed the HOA. They never responded." She narrowed her eyes. "Don't pretend you don't understand the rules." "I'm not pretending. I want to follow the rules. That's why I asked for clarification." For a moment, she simply stared, as if surprised that someone dared to question her. Then she spoke slowly. "You're drawing unnecessary attention to yourself." And without waiting for a reply, she walked away. That night, the homeowner couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, something bigger than just notes and warnings. The tone of her voice had changed. There was frustration in it, irritation, almost like she felt challenged. The next few days proved that she didn't like being challenged. Early one morning, long before sunrise, a loud knock sounded at the door. The homeowner rushed downstairs, half expecting an emergency. But when they opened the door, there was nobody there. Just another notice taped to the frame. "Your property has been observed violating nighttime exterior regulations. Take corrective action immediately." Nighttime exterior regulations. The homeowner had never heard of such a thing. They Googled the community rulebook. Nothing. They checked their HOA binder. Still nothing. And then the homeowner saw it. Written in tiny letters at the bottom. "This warning is issued directly by the compliance officer." There was no official seal. No board signatures. Just her. The homeowner began asking neighbors if they had ever heard of such a rule. Most shook their heads. One neighbor hesitated, then finally spoke quietly. "She makes up rules sometimes. She did it to the couple who lived here before you." "What happened to them?" "They moved. They couldn't take it anymore." The homeowner felt a heavy weight settle on their chest. This wasn't about rules. This was a pattern. That evening, while reviewing footage from the front camera, the homeowner paused at a frame that made their heartbeat spike. There she was, standing on the porch at nearly midnight, staring at the front door, holding a flashlight. She wasn't inspecting anything. She wasn't writing anything down. She was just staring. The homeowner sat there frozen, watching the short clip on repeat. She stood there for almost a full minute before turning and walking away. The next morning, the homeowner printed screenshots, saved the video, and added it to the folder they'd created. It was no longer just a record of annoyance. It was evidence, but evidence didn't stop her. One afternoon, as the homeowner was carrying groceries inside, the woman approached again, this time with a firm, almost smug expression. "I've noticed more issues with your property," she said. The homeowner didn't argue. "What issues?" "You know what they are?" "I don't. That's why I'm asking." "If you don't know, you're not paying enough attention." With that, she walked away, leaving the homeowner standing there speechless. It was impossible to follow rules that weren't real. Impossible to meet expectations she wouldn't explain. Something had to change. That night, the homeowner sat at the kitchen table and wrote a long email to the HOA board summarizing everything. the vague warnings, the visits, the made-up rules, the late-night porch footage, the intimidation. It wasn't angry, just detailed and factual. They hit send, and for a moment, they felt relief. But the next morning, before the sun even came up, a new note waited on the doorstep. Stop involving outside parties. You're making things difficult. That was the moment the homeowner realized she knew about the email. Even though the HOA board hadn't replied, yet someone on the board must have told her the problem wasn't just one woman. It was the power she had, the influence she held, maybe even the fear she had planted in everyone else. As the days passed, the tension escalated. She began pacing past the house more often, sometimes muttering to herself, sometimes scribbling aggressively on her clipboard even when nothing was happening. The way she watched the homeowner like studying them grew unnerving. One evening, the homeowner found her standing on the sidewalk directly across from the house, staring straight at the front door. No clipboard, no phone, no pretense. Just staring. When the homeowner stepped outside, she didn't move. Is there something you need? The homeowner asked. She tilted her head slightly. I'm making sure the neighborhood stays safe. Safe from what? She gave a cold smile. From people who don't follow the rules? Then she walked away. With each passing day, she became more unpredictable. Sometimes she acted overly polite, almost sweet, offering forced smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Other times, she snapped at the smallest things, like a leaf on the driveway or a slightly crooked welcome mat. And through it all, the homeowner kept documenting. They had no idea how important those recordings and notes would become. But they were about to find out, because soon, things would cross a line much more than anyone expected. The days leading up to the incident felt strange in a way the homeowner couldn't quite explain. It wasn't just the woman's constant presence anymore. It was the way the whole neighborhood seemed to go quiet whenever she was around. People walked faster past her, lowered their voices, avoided eye contact. It was as if everyone was waiting for something to happen, but didn't want to say what. The homeowner tried to stay, focused on normal routines, work, chores, small hobbies, but the tension hung in the back of their mind like a heavy cloud. Every time they left the house, they checked the cameras. Every night, they made sure the doors were locked, the windows shut, the lights on. They weren't scared yet, but they trusted their instincts. Something wasn't right. One evening, the homeowner stepped outside for some fresh air. The sky was quiet, the streets calm, and for a moment, everything felt normal. They stood on the porch, breathing in the cool air, letting their shoulders relax. Maybe things were calming down after all. Then they noticed a shadow across the street. At first, it looked like a tree branch shifting in the wind, but the wind was still. The shadow didn't move naturally. It shifted with purpose. The homeowner narrowed their eyes. Someone was standing there. When their eyes adjusted to the dim light, they realized who it was. The woman was standing on the sidewalk directly across from the house. It was barely visible under the street lamp. She wasn't walking. She wasn't holding her clipboard. She wasn't pretending to inspect anything. She was just watching. The homeowner stepped back inside and locked the door. That night, sleep didn't come easily. The homeowner tossed and turned, replaying the image in their mind, her expression, the way she stood perfectly still, the way she seemed to blend into the shadows. Eventually, exhaustion won, and they drifted into a restless sleep. Sometime after midnight, they woke up coughing. The air smelled strange, sharp, smoky, like something burning. At first, they thought it might be a candle or maybe something from outside drifting in. But within seconds, the smell grew stronger. This wasn't normal. They shot out of bed and rushed to the hallway. The smell was coming from the front of the house. They hurried toward the living room, heart pounding. When they turned the corner, their breath caught. There was smoke creeping in from under the front door. Not a little. A steady stream. The homeowner ran to the door, touched the handle, and jerked their hand back. The metal was warm. Their heart dropped. Something outside was burning, but they couldn't open the door without letting the smoke and heat rush in. They grabbed their phone, hands shaking, and called emergency services. Their voice caught as they tried to explain the situation. The smell of smoke thickening around them. The dispatcher stayed calm, guiding them step by step, telling them to move to the back of the house, open windows safely, and keep low to the ground. The homeowner followed every instruction, trying to stay focused. Within minutes, though, it felt like hours, they heard sirens in the distance. The homeowner slipped out through the back door, coughing into their sleeve, and hurried into the yard. From there, they could see it clearly. The front porch was burning, not engulfed, but a controlled fire, small, but strong enough to spread if left alone. The firefighters rushed in, putting out the flames quickly. The damage looked bad, but not catastrophic. The homeowner's heart still raced, feeling the adrenaline vibrating through their whole body. One of the firefighters walked over. "You did the right thing calling when you did. Another 10 minutes, and this would have spread," he said gently. The homeowner nodded, trying to steady their breathing. "What caused it?" they asked. "We don't know yet," the firefighter replied. "But this doesn't look like an accident." The homeowner's stomach dropped. Soon after, the fire inspector arrived. He crouched near the porch, examining the edges, sniffing the air, looking at the scorch marks. After a few minutes, he stood up. "There's something you should see," he said. The homeowner followed him. Under a burnt board near the steps was a small metal object, blackened, but still recognizable. It was a lighter. The inspector placed it gently into a bag. "This didn't belong here naturally," he said. "Someone dropped it." The homeowner swallowed hard. "Do you think someone set this on purpose?" "Can't say for sure until we run tests," he replied. "But it looks intentional." The homeowner didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their mind immediately jumped to one person, but their thoughts were interrupted by another firefighter who had been checking the front yard. "We found footprint impressions," he said. "Pretty fresh." The inspector shook his head in disbelief. Whoever did this wasn't very careful. The homeowner felt a chill crawl up their spine. The officers arrived soon after. They took statements, asked questions, examined the area thoroughly. When they reviewed footage from the camera mounted above the porch, the homeowner felt their stomach twist. There was a figure approaching the house late at night. The camera wasn't perfect. Darkness made it difficult to identify details, but the outline was clear. The posture, the height, the way the person walked. It looked familiar, too familiar. The officer studying the footage paused. "Do you know anyone who walks like this?" he asked. The homeowner hesitated. They didn't want to accuse anyone without proof. But the truth was too obvious to ignore. "There's someone who's been bothering me for a while," the homeowner said. "She works with the HOA." The officer nodded slowly. "Is she known to cause problems?" The homeowner let out a weary breath. "She makes a lot of rules, shows up without warning, leaves notes, watches my house. But I never thought she'd." The officer put a hand up gently. "We can't jump to conclusions, but we'll investigate." The homeowner nodded, grateful but terrified. As the firefighters packed up and the last hose was rolled away, the homeowner walked to the street, staring at the damaged porch. The boards were charred, but the house had survived. Still, the sight made something inside them tighten. They felt violated, exposed, unsafe in their own home. Neighbors slowly emerged from their houses, watching from a distance. Some whispered, some stared with wide eyes. One neighbor approached quietly. "I'm glad you're okay," they whispered. "This could have been so much worse." The homeowner nodded. "Did you see anything?" The neighbor shook their head nervously. "No, but I heard footsteps around midnight. I didn't look. I should have. It's okay," the homeowner said softly. "You didn't know?" The neighbor hesitated. "Do you think she—" The homeowner didn't answer. Later, as the officers finished up, one returned with a small plastic evidence bag. "You might want to take a closer look at this," he said. Inside the bag was the lighter. After the soot was brushed away, something faint appeared on the metal engraved letters. The homeowner leaned closer. Their hearts skipped. The letters looked. The officer bagged it again and locked it away. "We'll analyze it," he said. "But this could help the case." Case thought the word felt heavy. What had started as annoying notes and constant hovering had escalated into something far more serious, but the homeowner wasn't helpless. They had footage. They had the lighter. They had witnesses. They had officers who took the situation seriously. One of the firefighters approached before leaving. "You should stay with someone tonight," he said kindly. "The smell might linger, and you need rest." The homeowner nodded. But as they walked back inside the house to collect a few things, they paused at the doorway. The porch, the peaceful place where they once stood for fresh air, was blackened and damaged. The message was clear. Someone wanted them gone. But instead of fear, something else rose inside. Determination. This wasn't going to be ignored. Anymore, they would fight back. This wasn't just about rules. This was about safety, about boundaries, about standing up to someone who thought they controlled everything. The homeowner shut the door behind them, took a deep breath, and prepared for what came next. Because after that night, nothing would ever be the same again. The homeowner barely slept after the night of the fire. Even though they stayed at a neighbor's house, their mind kept replaying everything: the smoke, the porch burning, the firefighters' voices, the lighter with the engraved initials. Every time they closed their eyes, they saw the figure from the camera footage walking toward their home in the darkness. Morning didn't bring much comfort. The house still smelled faintly of burnt wood. The porch looked even worse in daylight. The blackened boards, the melted railing pieces, the charred ground, it all felt unreal. The homeowner stood there for a long moment, staring at the damage, trying to wrap their head around how everything had gone so far. The officers returned late in the morning. They wanted to gather additional details and review the camera footage again. One of them, a calm, patient officer who had been there the night before, spoke gently. "Did anyone threaten you recently?" The homeowner didn't answer right away. Threat was a strong word. The woman never said anything directly dangerous. But the tone, the behavior, the escalating pressure, it all added up. "I've been having problems with someone from the HOA," the homeowner finally said. "She's been showing up constantly, leaving notes, making up rules, watching my house." The officer nodded without judgment. "Do you think she's capable of something like this?" The homeowner hesitated. "I don't want to accuse anyone, but I don't know who else would do this." The officer wrote a few notes. "We'll look into it. We'll talk to her and we'll talk to the HOA board. You're not alone in this." His reassurance meant a lot more than he probably realized. Later that afternoon, the homeowner met quietly with a neighbor who had also seen the woman lingering around late at night. "Do you think the police will actually do something?" the neighbor asked. "I hope so," the homeowner said softly. But deep down, they knew hope wasn't enough, which is why the next step came naturally. The homeowner reached out to a legal expert.com, professional attorney referred by a coworker. They explained everything from the beginning: the notes, the fake rules, the nighttime watching, the hovering, the fire, the lighter with initials. The attorney listened closely, occasionally asking for details. When the homeowner finished, the attorney leaned back with a thoughtful expression. "You've tolerated a lot," they said, "and it's gone far beyond HOA issues. This is harassment. It's intimidation. And now, it's a safety threat. You've already done the right thing by calling the police and keeping records, but we're going to take this further." "What do you mean?" the homeowner asked. "We're going to build a case," the attorney replied. "A real one, not just complaints. You have evidence. You have witnesses. And if the fire was intentional and if those initials match the person you've described, it will be very serious for her." The homeowner swallowed. Hearing it put so clearly made everything feel heavier. "Are you sure I can win something like this?" "Sure we can fight it," the attorney said. "And you won't do it alone." Over the next few days, the attorney helped the homeowner prepare an organized file of everything: emails, notes, camera footage, timestamps, even the small details that seemed unimportant. The homeowner was surprised at how much they had recorded without meaning to. Every little incident suddenly mattered. Meanwhile, officers continued to ask questions around the neighborhood. More neighbors came forward quietly. "I saw her walking by your house late at night," one whispered. "She threatened to fine me for a lawn ornament once," another admitted. "She told me you were a problem," someone else said. "There was a pattern, a long one." It wasn't just the homeowner. She had a history, but this time she had gone too far. The HOA board finally contacted the homeowner for a meeting. The email sounded polite, but the tone felt forced, like they were trying to fix something they suddenly realized could spiral out of control. When the homeowner arrived, several board members looked nervous. "We're very sorry about what happened," one of them said quickly. "We had no idea things had escalated to this point." The homeowner sat quietly for a moment before asking the question that had been burning in their mind. Why didn't anyone stop her? The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, one spoke. "She handles most compliance issues. She's very involved." "Involved?" the homeowner repeated. "She was watching my house at midnight." Another board member spoke up. "We didn't know about that." She doesn't always report everything she does." The homeowner stared at them in disbelief. "So she's been acting alone?" "Not entirely," the board member admitted. "But she takes initiative. More than we want, honestly." It was clear they were trying to protect their own positions. But it didn't matter anymore. The homeowner wasn't here to blame them. They were here to document everything for the attorney after leaving the meeting. The homeowner felt something shift inside them again, but this time it wasn't fear or frustration. It was strength, control. They weren't running away. They weren't hiding or standing up. The next week was a blur of meetings with the attorney, conversations with police, and gathering statements from neighbors willing to speak. Some were scared, but many wanted to help. "She scared all of us," one person admitted. "I'm tired of pretending everything is fine. She threatened to fine me every week for months," another said. "I didn't say anything because I didn't want trouble." "That woman has been waiting for someone to push back," an older neighbor added. "I'm glad it's finally happening." The homeowner felt supported for the first time. People who once avoided conflict were now coming together, sharing experiences, offering help. The attorney organized everything into a solid timeline. "This is strong," the attorney said, tapping the stack of evidence. "And once the fire investigation report comes in, this becomes even stronger." The homeowner nodded. Their hands still shook sometimes when they thought about the danger they were in. But the shaking came with resolve now. A few days later, the police called. "We have results," the officer said, "and we need you to come in." The homeowner's heart hammered as they drove to the station. When they sat down, the same officer from the night of the fire entered the room with a file in hand. "The lighter has identifiable initials. They match the person you told us about." The homeowner closed their eyes for a moment, and the fire, confirming accelerant was used. "This was intentional," the officer continued. "We'll be speaking with her today. We'll keep you informed. But I want you to know you did the right thing, and we're taking it seriously." That night, the neighborhood buzzed quietly. Word spread fast that officers had come to talk to the woman. Several neighbors peeked from behind curtains, whispering to one another. Some looked relieved. Others seemed nervous, but none of it compared to what happened the next morning. The homeowner woke to a knock at the door. When they opened it, a calm officer was standing there with a firm but calm expression. "She has been taken in for questioning," he said. "And based on the evidence, charges are being filed." The homeowner felt a wave of emotions: relief, disbelief, exhaustion. For weeks they had lived under the pressure of being watched, confronted, targeted. For days they had feared retaliation. For one terrifying night they feared for their safety. But now, the balance was shifting. The officer continued, "Your attorney will handle the civil case. We'll take care of the criminal part. You should prepare for court. It won't be quick, but you have a strong case." The homeowner nodded, feeling something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. For the first time since moving into the neighborhood, they felt like they had control over their own home again. But the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. A court battle was coming, a big one, and the homeowner was ready. The morning of the court hearing came faster than the homeowner expected. Even though weeks had passed since the fire, the memory of it still lived inside them like a shadow that refused to leave. But today felt different. Today felt heavier, but also more meaningful. Today was the day everything that had been hidden or ignored would finally be brought out into the open. They woke up early, long before the sun rose. They made tea, but barely drank it, their hands wrapped around the warm cup just to steady themselves. They tried to rehearse thoughts in their head, what they might say, how they might respond, but it only made their heart race more. Eventually, they just took a deep breath and told themselves, "You've already survived the worst part. This is just the next step." When it was time to leave, they dressed carefully, wanting to look calm even though their stomach felt like it was twisting into knots. Their lawyer met them outside the courthouse with a reassuring smile. "Take your time," the lawyer said gently. "You don't have to be perfect today. You just have to be honest. Everything else is already working in your favor." The homeowner nodded, breathing in slowly. They weren't used to being the center of anything, let alone a court case with half the neighborhood watching from afar. But they were here, and they weren't going to step back now. Inside, the courthouse felt cold and echoing. The walls were tall and pale, and every sound, the steps, the voices, the rustle of papers felt strangely loud. Their lawyer guided them to a quiet corner to talk. "Remember," the attorney said, "you don't have to look at her unless you want to, and you never have to speak directly to her. Everything goes through the court." The homeowner nodded again. They were trying to stay calm, but they could already feel their pulse quickening as more people entered the room, and then she walked in. The person who had made their life harder day by day. The person who had threatened them, stalked their property, pushed fines through the HOA, and finally crossed a line so big it changed everything. She walked in confidently at first, head held high, as if she still believed she controlled the situation. But when she noticed the officers watching her closely, and when she saw the number of neighbors sitting behind the homeowner, her face shifted. The confidence slipped. Her eyes narrowed. She seemed to shrink in place. The homeowner looked away. They didn't want to engage with her. Not today. The hearing began with the judge entering, and the entire room fell silent. The judge read through the case summary reports of harassment, falsified HOA fines, unauthorized surveillance, and the fire investigation. Even hearing it out loud felt surreal to the homeowner. It sounded like something that should happen in a movie, not real life. The prosecutor spoke first, laying out the evidence step by step. The security footage showing her near the house that night, the lighter, with initials that matched hers, the accelerant traces, investigators. Found witness statements about her threats and behavior, years of complaints from multiple neighbors. Each piece felt like another weight, lifting off the homeowner's shoulders. For the first time, the truth wasn't something they were holding alone. It was out in the open. When it was time for neighbors to speak, one of the older residents walked up to the stand. Her voice shook slightly, but she spoke with honesty. "Hey?" "She scared a lot of us," the neighbor said. "We didn't say anything because we didn't want to be her next target. But this went too far. We should have spoken up earlier." Another neighbor came forward, someone who had hardly spoken in the past, but now looked determined. She treated the HOA like it was her personal property. She made rules that didn't exist. She used fear to control people. This didn't start with the fire. It started a long time ago, and it kept getting worse. Each voice added strength to the homeowner's side. They couldn't help feeling emotional as they listened. For so long, they felt alone. For so long, they thought no one else saw what was happening. But now it was clear, many people had noticed. Even if they hadn't spoken, then it was the homeowner's turn. Their heart pounded as they walked to the stand. The judge nodded for them to begin when ready. "I moved into the neighborhood because it seemed peaceful," the homeowner began softly. "I never imagined I would end up here telling this story. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want a problem with anyone. I tried to fix every issue she brought up, even things that didn't make sense. But it never stopped. Every time I fixed something, she found something else." Their voice wavered, but they kept going. "I tried going to the HOA board, but nothing changed. I tried keeping distance. I tried not reacting. But she kept pushing. And then one night, my home was almost destroyed. I still don't sleep well. I still get nervous when I hear noises outside. I didn't want to bring this into court, but I also couldn't keep living in fear." There was silence in the room for a long moment. The judge nodded slowly. "Thank you for your honesty." When the homeowners stepped down, their lawyer whispered, You did perfectly. Then it was her turn. She walked to the stand, and it was clear her confidence had cracked. She tried to explain the lighter, claiming it was a coincidence or a setup. She claimed the security footage wasn't clear enough. She blamed the board, the neighbors, even the homeowner, saying, "They all exaggerate. They all gang up on me because they don't like structure." At one point, she raised her voice, insisting she never meant harm. The judge had to remind her to stay calm and answer questions properly. But the evidence was too detailed, the story too consistent, the patterns too obvious. When the hearing finally reached its conclusion, the judge reviewed everything carefully. The courtroom was completely still. The judge looked up. "Based on the evidence, testimony, and investigative findings," the judge said, "the court finds that she is responsible for the actions taken against the homeowner, the harassment, the misuse of HOA authority, and the actions leading to the damage of the homeowner's property cannot be excused or overlooked." It was like the entire room let out the same breath. The judge continued, outlining consequences. She would face legal penalties for her actions. She was permanently removed from any HOA. Leadership, she was restricted. From contacting the homeowner, restitution. For damages would be required. Her face fell completely. Whatever power she once believed she had was gone. As the judge dismissed the hearing, the homeowner sat still in their seat, letting the moment sink in. They didn't feel joy. Not exactly. It wasn't that kind of victory. It was more like relief, like a weight finally slid off their shoulders. Outside the courtroom, several neighbors approached quietly. "You were strong," one said. "You did the right thing," said another. "Things will be better now," a third added. The homeowner nodded, though their eyes felt warm with emotion. It had been a long journey, one filled with fear, frustration, and exhaustion. But it had also been filled with bravery they didn't know they had. The lawyer walked up beside them. "It's over," they said. "You can finally rebuild in peace." For the first time in a long while, the homeowner let themselves breathe deeply, really breathe. The neighborhood felt different now, lighter, safer. People smiled more openly as they passed by. The HOA board held a meeting to restructure its rules and assign new leadership that actually listened to the community. And slowly, bit by bit, the homeowner began to feel at ease again. They repaired the porch. They repainted the walls touched by smoke. They planted new flowers where the ground had been burned. And with each repair, they felt like they were taking their home back, not just the building, but the feeling of safety that came with it. This chapter of their life had been frightening, confusing, and overwhelming. But they had stood their ground. They had spoken up when it mattered most. And they had watched the truth come to light, no matter how long it took. In the end, they learned one thing clearly. Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones you never expected to fight. But sometimes those battles lead you to discover how strong you truly are. And now, with the case behind them and the neighborhood finally calm, they could finally begin again, this time with peace, strength, and a home that truly felt like theirs.